Can everyone hear me? Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Argam, DerHartunian, VP of Product at PicsArt. So who here has actually heard of PicsArt, has used it, is one of our awesome users? Just a couple. Wonderful, wonderful. So I'll have to do a little bit of explaining of what we do. So PicsArt, what are we? We make self-expression with images fun, social, and easy for everyone. Now, what exactly is that, right? What exactly? We have a suite of tools that allow anyone, you can be a novice, you can be an advanced professional, to create really amazing images, things that just tell a story, take your breath away, and really make it fun and awesome to use. We are the world's leading social photo editing application. We're on iOS, Windows, Android. We make awesome pictures and share them with the world. We have a really powerful aspect of our product that really helps drive the community forward, and that's the community aspect, where anyone can take an image, take a photo of the amazing scenery you see here, and mark it as free to edit. And that is then remixed by the community using our suite of tools, and then that kind of takes on its own emotion. We see images like this created, and then people just taking it to new realms that we couldn't even think of. We have over 3,000 editing tools, and we have over 1 million free-to-edit images available for free. And these are images that are uploaded by our community for anyone to take and add their own twist to it. And we see amazing numbers from these. We have over 450 million images that are created on PicsArt monthly. We have over 80 million monthly active users and over 52 million daily sessions. So this is a large amount of people coming in and using the app and really creating something that really, I think, inspires people, makes them happy, and we've seen some great stories coming out of it. We use A/B testing in many different ways. It's a requirement for anyone at the company. Any new feature that is pushed out into production needs to be A/B tested with at least 2 variants. That's anything from a small button change to a large new feature that we're going to be introducing. And that's really, when you're dealing with numbers like we are, in the millions and millions, it's important that you don't infect other numbers. You're not affecting retention rates, you're not affecting sign-up rates, you're not affecting sharing rates. Even a 2% drop is really big for us. So that's why it's a strict requirement for anyone launching anything on our product to have an A/B testing framework. But how do you make tests work for your app, right? There's a large number of things you can do. You can change button colors, you can introduce new features, you can, like the previous feature speaker, you can take buttons, move them around, make them bigger. How can you decide that, right? And how do you focus on the things that will really move your numbers? So with that, I'm going to go through a methodology with a few examples of how you can run smaller A/B tests and really take a look at the larger picture and be data-informed rather than data-driven, because it's important for the life and blood of your product that the product remains how it is, right? You're, as any product executive or product designer, you want to make sure that it's not just being data-driven, as in anything that removes the needles, you're just doing, and then the product will, in the end, just become something that is just moving to one goal rather than having something that's special for those users. And to create something successful where people are coming back, you have to create this passion, this sense of the product having a soul, having something that's really pulling people back in, and that, I think, can become diminished if you're just data-driven. So with that, you want to design the right tests, you want to understand the results, and in the end, you want to make the right decision. And that isn't always the one that's a winner. It's important to note, it isn't always the one that's a winner. Now, how do you design the right test, right? You want to know what you want to influence. What are your KPIs? What are your key metrics? With each action, with each product, you have a core value, core action that you want to always point the user towards. In the case of PicsArt, it's sharing to the community a free-to-edit image or sharing a remix, right? That is our most valuable action. That is our core value that you can't get anywhere in any other app. Choose a few variants, just a few. Don't go crazy. Don't take a button and create 20 different colors, You'll create 20 different colors and you'll just get confused and it'll just lose the brand value. Create a few variants that are within your brand guidelines, within the product guidelines, and maybe have one outlier just to play with it, see how it performs, right? And then run the test at the right time. For us, our biggest days are holidays like Thanksgiving, during the Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. That's when people are really using our app to create images, create things that they can express themselves and communicate with. Don't choose those times because those are going to be different and those are going to skew your results and you don't want that, right? Here's a test. I joined PicsArt about a year ago, and when I first joined, I looked at the conversion rates. I was like, well, what are we doing? Why aren't we getting larger conversion rates of people sharing something to the PicsArt community, right? And then I looked at it and I said, well, the button was the done button was actually to the left. And I said, you know what, we're going to remove that and we're going to try different variants. A check mark, a left arrow, done, and next. And then we tried a couple other ones that were a little bit off the guide with like a red outline on the next button, right? So this was a perfect test. I ran it in a time where it was pretty consistent period, and it just focused on one action. And that one action was, how do I get more shares? How do I get people, instead of them just going there and saving it to their phone, how do I get them to share it to PicsArt or share it to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. Right? So we composed this test, and I'll go to the results later. Another test was a bigger test, right? This is within our community, not the editor. We had a horizontal scroll, which is when you see an image, you can flip through it and you'll see horizontal. And we came up with a new design that showed a preview of all those images and had the more action. And our hypothesis there was to engage more people into the photo view. How do I get more people consuming more? How do I get them commenting more? What are those social actions, right? So it was one, the photo view, and then also the social actions. And obviously from that, you want to get retention rates. If a new user comes in, views more, they're more likely to then come back and take an action that then leads them to higher retention rate. So we ran that as well as a test on the shop where we have a IAP shop where it's in-app purchases where you can buy stickers, fonts, frames. We renamed that with a few variants: shop, add-on, store, etc., which I'll go into later. So the next thing is, what are the results? What influences your core action? How does it affect retention? And what other metrics did it move, right? If in one of these tests, let's say I got a higher share, but then retention dropped from, let's say 80% to 40%, is that really the right thing I want to do? Maybe I'm getting 90% share, but then I'm not getting 7-day, 14-day, 40-day retention, whatever it may be. And then what other metrics did it move, right? Maybe image views were up, but social actions were down, remixes were up, but image views were down. What is it that you really care about? And it's important to know that going in, because if you just run a test to run a test, then you're not going to be in the right position to analyze the results. You always have to have a guiding light, always have to have the North Pole, always have something that you're aiming towards, and you know that is going to influence your decision, and you're happy with that decision when you make it. So this is the done button test. This is a screenshot from Apptimize, and it's important to look at these numbers. Like, it's pretty crazy if you look at it. That if you look at these are events that I created in Apptimize. And it's showing like the increase you see in each of those actions, right? So we look at the top, exit from editor. We actually see that less people exited when they saw a more prominent sign. So we see that there's a white check mark, front arrow, orange check mark, red outlined arrow, and each one will have a higher, less. You have actually more people exiting from the editor, right? And then if you look at the shape share open, which was the key metric that I was interested in, you'll see that just a front arrow versus a red outline arrow, you'll almost see a double in the difference in people going to the next step, right? So in that, you would think, hey, Argam, you should probably go with the red outline arrow, right? Not the other ones, right? I'll go into that in the decision side, but the horizontal scroll test is interesting as well. Now this one, we're interested in the photo view action. These are flurry events that we had, right? So you have the original, which had horizontal scroll, and then we had a no horizontal scroll. We removed all horizontal scrolls, right? And we were interested in a few things. And but our most important thing was the photo open. We thought that if you had no horizontal scroll, more people would tap on it and open the photo, right? Because you had real previews, and you wouldn't tap on it if you're just scrolling through it, right? You already saw the entire thing. But our hypothesis was incorrect, right? We saw there was a little dip in the photo open when there was no horizontal scroll. People actually liked seeing the bigger previews and then tapping in and taking the social action. And we also saw a dip in social action, which isn't reflected here because we have internal analytics for that, based on the no horizontal scroll. So our hypothesis was completely incorrect, so we went back to having horizontal scroll. On the shop title test, and this is just changing between store, add-ons, and get stickers, and you'll see just changing one word makes a huge difference, right? And our key metric there was getting people into the shop, because at that point, then we have a bunch of other things that are variants, right? We don't want to really influence that. So all we wanted to do was get more people into the store, because we saw that if a user makes 2 purchases, they're likely to come back 6 months from now. There was a crazy 80% retention rate. If we just got them to make 2 purchases, we'd get to 80% retention within 6 months, which is what we were trying to drive. But this was just one piece, again, just one piece of the equation. Right? We didn't want to just make a decision on this. But what we did was we actually went with add-ons because we saw the shop open was the most, and that reflected to what we had more. We didn't just have stickers, and it wasn't a store, and we found that people got a little bit confused about that. So here comes making a decision. And here goes back to my first point of it's not just the data, right? I see every product decision in this sphere. And every product decision needs to be made considering these 4 factors and these 4 factors always, right? And in different decisions, you'll skew towards one, and in different decisions, you'll skew towards others, right? Number 1 is data. This is actual A/B tests you're running, and this is usage data that you're getting from the app, right? With us, we have a lot of data. We're in a lucky position. We can get to statistical relevance in 24, 48 hours with certain things, a week for others. If you're dealing with a smaller data set, you have to give yourself a bit longer time, and you have to make some assumptions based on your data, right? Competitors, it's always important to look at competitors. Look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, what are the UX, UI guidelines, how can you take your product forward in different ways, what are people used to, because that will influence your decision as well. And then really look at where the market is heading, right? You don't want to necessarily, if you're developing an Android app, skew too heavily away from Android design guidelines, right? User reviews and user tests. Always be looking at what users are saying on your App Store reviews. Always be running user tests, both using things like usertesting.com or bring in people and actually interview them, and show them actual prototypes or designs. And at the end, it's intuition. It's the right decision, right? So it's taking into account all of these factors when making your decisions and really keeping the soul of the product. So going back to the initial initial test that I showed you with the different buttons, right? You would think that I would go with the red button, right? But as we looked more into it, we saw it was a spike from the first day of our current users just seeing something new and tapping on it, right? Versus an actual repeating behavior. So what we did is we tried a few more, we waited a little bit longer, we tracked it for a little bit longer, and we saw that actually something that's a little bit prominent, we went with a little round white button with a right arrow. Found that actually felt more intuitive for the app, more native for the app, and made the flow a lot more consistent, right? So we went with that. And we have a lot of these types of decisions where we take this entire approach in deciding what goes into the product. Because, again, you want to make sure your users retain, you want to make sure that it keeps its soul, you want to make sure that you're always making the product what it needs to be and what your vision for the product is, right? And at PicsArt, we run over 100 tests a month in different ways. Some using Apptimize, some using our internal tools, some using segmentation, and each of them then informs this tree for us to then make decisions. And it's important that in our organization we have a team of about 14 product managers. It's important they're empowered to do this on their own, right? You don't want any of the decisions, any of the tests being just said from top down. We always have. I encourage. It's in the PRD process where every time you create a new product, you have a new concept document, you actually define the test you're going to run, you define your key KPI, your KPIs, your key performance indicators, the metrics that you want to influence, and then make sure you run them before you actually push it out to 100%. So those then help make the decisions. They help create a product that you think you'll be proud of and help move the metrics that you want to move. And that is it. Thank you. I'm open to any questions.
Right here. Microphone is coming.
When you discover a lift, say in part of your conversion flow or whatever, how long do you wait before you say test it again? What's your cadence for relooking at different flows you've changed?
We run on, we have a weekly releases, so we run on we have a pod-based approach, right? So every unit, let's say you were part of the editor team that had that button test, right? You would look at it on a week-by-week basis, and I would want to see another test in another month, right? You're always continuously optimizing. If you're not continuously optimizing, looking at the flows, then you're going to see a dip in metrics. You have to always continuously optimize. There's not like a perfect answer because it all depends on a few factors, right? It's your load, what are the priorities, right? If that's still a priority, then keep on trying to optimize it. Like, for example, our login screen, right? We've optimized that for over a year, and we're still optimizing it. And we have probably every 2 weeks we have a release trying different things in different markets. Because what we found is, for example, in our login screen, there was an interesting difference even on platforms and geography. On platforms, on iOS, we had a very complicated screen with a lot of images that were fading in and out of all the things you can do with PicsArt. And then we tested that on Android, and that didn't convert very well. It converted well on iOS, but then on Android, the just white screen converted the best with no images in the background, right? And then I said, well, let's continue testing. We found that was because a lot of Android devices were in other countries that had lower end Android devices, and it was a really bad experience, right? So even then, we had to segment more. So what you're doing is you just keep on testing, and you keep on segmenting. Found the same thing in Japan. We had an icon test that we ran, and it was different types of screens and different icons about conversion installing the app. We found a very colorful icon worked good in Japan, but it didn't work well in other territories, right? And that we keep on testing. Just take the winner and then kind of follow up. And it really depends on resources and it depends on your key metrics, right? If sign up is super important and installs are super important for us, so that is always being refined. Whereas the initial the next button, that one is still an important metric, but I think we've gotten to a really, really high number that it doesn't make sense for us to really run a lot more tests on that.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Argam.
Thank you.